So, Kathy, before we talk about the national security law and the repression that is happening in these very days that we're speaking here, I thought it would be a good thing to give our audience a little bit of background, which is even before the repression that happened, perhaps starting a year ago when the Chinese government wanted to do this extradition law and there were millions of people in the streets. How hard or easy was it to form a union? I know that thousands of unions have registered since the uprising, if I can call it that, in the past year. But even before that, how hard is it to organize a union in Hong Kong?
It's incredibly difficult. And I think that's a really important context to understand. In Hong Kong, you have two union federations. One is pro Beijing, the Hong Kong Federation of Trade Unions. And then you have the federation, the Hong Kong Confederation of Trade Unions, HKCTU, which is really part of the democracy movement. But there's no right to collective bargaining in Hong Kong. It's incredibly hard to exercise your rights as a worker and to organize a union in Hong Kong, even before this current moment.
So how would you compare it compared to the United States, for example, how hard it is? Is it just about the practicality or the repression from the Chinese government or corporate influence? Give us a sense of that.
I would say it's all of that. I
Mm.
mean, it's an incredibly capitalist society. You've got the Chinese government monitoring everything you do. That's why the pro Beijing movement is there to counter everything that the independent labor movement is doing. And then the laws don't help. So they've got sort of the, triple challenge of bad labor law that doesn't support worker rights, mainland China watching what you do, and a very capitalist corporate society.
And so a year ago, as you quite well know, there was the extradition law that the Chinese government tried to implement, and there were huge demonstrations. I mean, I think I saw one figure that said that at any given time, there were moments when 25% of the people of Hong Kong turned out into the streets. And I remember seeing those incredible images of a million people marching and saying, why not here? But let's not go there about the United States. So, what has changed in the last few days that puts your colleagues in the trade union movement at particular risk?
Right. So on the evening of June 30th, the Chinese government put forward a national security law. And the national security law, we should make sure people really understand that Hong Kong really lives sort of a separate life from many of the security laws found on mainland China. And that's why you had this, sort of very extreme form of capitalism. People were used to being able to take to the streets to protest even before this extradition law. And so on July 1st, this national security law is targeting the democracy movement. And so when there was pushback on the extradition law, they had to pull that law back. They came back with this security law to make sure that the democracy movement would, in their eyes, become completely controlled by mainland China. There are 66 articles. It's an incredibly sort of long, convoluted law that even those that have read it say it leaves it very open and ambiguous to what it exactly means.
But what we do know is that people, I think, are subject to more easier arrest and detainment. I gather that at least a couple of people who you work with have already been arrested in recent times, right? Is there anybody of the activist in the labor movement there, the Hong Kong Confederation of Trade Unions, that's in jail right now?
So they're not in jail right now. Lee Chuck Young, who is
Hmm.
a longtime activist
I've
and
met him
scholar
actually. I met him some
in
years
LA
ago. Yeah, in one of
or St.
your,
Louis.
I think it was in St. Louis actually. Yes, at the convention.
He spoke at the AFL-CIO convention. He's a
Hmm.
longtime ally of the AFL-CIO and of the global labor movement. In fact, he was also a member and founding member of a labor party. So he has been active in Hong Kong politics for a long time and a target of mainland China for a long time. He and there's 15 activists who are on trial as we speak. So they're not in jail, but they are facing very serious charges. This new law makes it even more dangerous for them. So they were already on charges, let's be clear, before this law came in. And now the four major offenses in the law, which are separatism, subversion, terrorism, and collusion with foreign countries, means that anything they do, whether talking to the two of us or talking to the US government, could really up their charges and mean they could face a lifetime in imprisonment on mainland China.
Hmm. So this is happening at a time of a bit of a attack on China from the right wing, meaning from Trump in particular. As you know, he's used some quite racist language trying to pin the coronavirus on China. And so I wonder how you navigate those streams, if you will. And I say this in the context of this. I remember that the attacks against the Soviet Union back in the day, the communist regime and the anti-communist fervor that swept the country and did, in my view, so much damage to the United States, especially when you think about the amazing and incredible and outrageous spending on defense and all the things in which that, I think, what really was rotten to its core. How do you navigate that in the China sense of talking about the rights of union people to organize and not coming across as embracing the same kind of rhetoric that the right wing is embracing as it relates to China?
We absolutely reject the racist rhetoric of this administration and how they've been going after China. But we do say that we stand in solidarity with the brave activists, both in Hong Kong, and let's not forget the brave activists in mainland China, who for years have gone missing when they stand up for worker rights issues in a factory. We stand shoulder to shoulder with those workers. And this is not about a Trump administration agenda and racist attacks. This is about worker to worker solidarity and the fact that the trade union movement is key to fights for democracy, not only in Hong Kong, but around the world. And if we let these attacks happen in Hong Kong, the shrinking of civil society space, it means they can happen around the world.
And I was actually throwing you a little bit of a softball there before, and I'll explain why. Because one of the quotes that from your video that I grabbed from one of the activists, the video that you had on your website at AFL-CIO.org about this issue, about the Hong Kong activists, this was a quote, and I thought it was quite relevant about China. They believe in the unification of capitalism and totalitarianism. And what I thought was different again than from the Soviet Union compared to China is that, frankly, China has been, as you quite well know, you've been in this space a long time. It is the place where capitalism thrives, meaning it is the industrial base where all these big corporations like Walmart, and you can go down the list, come to China to exploit workers for essentially wages. So it's a little bit of a different context. I mean, China has the rubric or the slogan of being communist China, but really it is serving huge corporations to produce stuff at slave wage levels, right?
Absolutely. And, you know, it's very disappointing to see the lack of response from the business community. They are very scared to stand up to China.
I'm
Some of
shocked, shocked.
some of them spoke up about the extradition law, I will say, but when pushed, we have not heard from them. And I will just add another issue that we've been working on as a labor movement is the slave labor issue of the Uyghurs in Xinjiang, China. And again, although this administration is talking about it, they're not talking about it from a worker rights perspective or that they really care. It's more in this other framework that they have. This is about corporations taking advantage of forced labor in China. They produce our clothes, the cotton that comes into our clothes. And so it is our responsibility to call that out. And absolutely, it's not working people that benefit from that. It is corporations that are using slave labor in areas of China. And so that's really the work that we see is so important, standing shoulder to shoulder with our brothers and sisters in Hong Kong as they are in an incredible fight to protect democracy in Hong Kong, and then to speak out about ongoing worker rights abuses in China that we've always, I want to be clear, have spoken out about for decades. This is not a new campaign. Yeah.
Yes, and I remember, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong about some of the details, there was an attempt to reform the labor law in China, I think from pressure from the ILO, from the AFL-CIO and others, and big corporations went into China and said, don't reform the labor law, keep it as hard ass as it is, right? Am I right about that?
Absolutely. The US Chamber of Commerce, which
Yes.
many people don't understand, have offices in countries around the world. And so it is, they often monitor labor law reforms. And the most famous one is in China, where they made sure that, uh, and actually, a proactive, positive reform that was going to take place
Yes.
was actually blocked. And I have to say, this is not just China. We see the role of the US Chamber of Commerce, whether it's in the country of Georgia, where they blocked some important labor law reforms there. They are very active in monitoring anything that is pro worker in countries around the world.
And so I wanted to make that analogy because I think it's important for our audience to understand that really China is there serving, the leadership is serving big corporations, and it is not about, if you will, the mass people's movement. And so I say this for especially people who are more left wing listening to the program, that you have to understand that this is, as I said before, the Chinese government in this particular instance and this context. It's about, and I'm quoting again, the unification of capitalism and totalitarianism. I can't even say the word, but it really is about serving the Chamber of Commerce's interests.
Absolutely. And I would just be mindful that this is a model that they're trying to export around the world. And so, again, it's not surprising that in Hong Kong, the fight for democracy has been linked to the fight to grow unions and collective action.
Mm.
Workers there are standing up, and you're seeing some of the highest levels of worker organizing in Hong Kong take place right now, despite the challenges to organize a union in Hong Kong. Workers understand they can't do it alone. In order to fight these conditions, fight these corporations, you must have collective action and unions.
And to your point about it's being exported around the world, I see lots of articles and descriptions about the Chinese attempt to travel around the world and invest, especially in Africa, in all sorts of projects. This is seen as a fight with the United States, really, at the global security level and trying to be a superpower. But at the level of what you are concerned about, when you have a Chinese led project in Africa and other countries, I assume you see the same conditions being translated in terms of worker rights, that under these projects, there's an attempt to suppress unions and suppress worker rights.
Absolutely. And to be clear, in mainland China, there is no independent labor movement. And so that is the model. Often it's called the Belt Road Initiative, is a huge project that China has to invest in countries, and it's high speed rail, it's mining, it's lots of very strategic industries. And it's also sometimes they go to build union halls, right, to
Mm.
kind of win over favor by the public and workers. And so this has been a strategy, but wherever they go, worker rights abuses are high. And I will say, worker rights abuses are high where you have US corporations usually, as well as the Chinese government. Often US companies like to say, but we're not them.
Well, they
So,
work hand in glove. That's why we can't separate their interest, the Chinese government's interest and U.S. corporations. They work hand in glove, obviously, because the underlying idea is not competition over an idea or competition over a better product. It's all about suppressing wages and suppressing worker rights.
absolutely. Although I am hoping in the current moment where we're facing this threat of, systemic racism, economic inequality, a pandemic, and a challenge to democracy, that corporations will finally see that we need a transformative model. We cannot continue like this. And if they continue to support the kind of repression that we're seeing in Hong Kong and China, you're going to continue to see backlash. You're going to continue to see workers organizing and rising up. This is not the model that we need to come out of in this current time of crisis. We need a much more transformative pro worker model.
And so the last question I'll ask you is this. Okay, so here you are with your comrades in Hong Kong under this incredible repression. What do you do? I mean, how do you support folks in a situation where you have this totalitarian regime suppressing folks? You can't call out your own military. How do you support them? And what's their then future in terms of fighting back against this?
The most important thing they told us. So on June 30th, we gave the Civil and Human Rights Front, one of the key democracy organizations, including the labor movement, our annual Human Rights Award, the AFL-CIO George Meany Lynn Kirkland Human Rights Award. And they were clear to us. They said the one thing you can do amidst all the challenges everyone's facing is not to forget us.
Hmm.
And so I think that's one thing I would tell everybody. It is not easy to take on China. It is not easy to take on corporate power, but it is easy to make sure that the people that are on the front lines are not forgotten. So whether it's sharing the video that we've posted, and hopefully you'll post on your site, it's using social media to support the HKCTU. You can find them on Twitter. It's making sure that you stand and make statements in support of labor activists in both mainland China and Hong Kong. That's what they've asked us right now. I will just say on July 1st, that the day that the law went into effect, Lee Chuk-young, the head of the labor movement in Hong Kong, was testifying in front of the US Congress, boldly challenging the new national security law. If he's that courageous, we need to stand with him and make sure he's not forgotten.
Well, they've got a tough road ahead of them, obviously, but they're great. It's great for them to have you as their advocate and other people and thousands of activists around the world. And we'll keep following this. And thanks again for being on the program.
Thanks so much. Great to be here.